it's gonna be alright on the night shift. Night or day, shadow never seen.
You won't believe this. Some of the richest rock stars in history live like they're broke. We're talking about music legends worth millions who still drive old cars, shop for bargains, and avoid luxury. Let's dive into the shocking truth. 20. Bruce Springsteen. Did you know that the boss still prefers driving his old truck instead of a flashy sports car? Despite being worth over $650 million, Bruce Springsteen keeps it simple. No over-the-top mansions or Hollywood lifestyle for him.
A long night, it's gonna be alright on the night shift.
Bruce Springsteen has always been the voice of the working class, and it turns out he still lives like one. While most rock stars splurge on private jets, Bruce sticks to regular transportation, and his home is shockingly modest for someone of his status. In an interview, he even admitted to cutting his own lawn. While he's not performing to sold-out stadiums, you can find him riding around on his motorcycle or eating at local diners. He famously once said, "I don't need a mansion to write my songs. The stories are out there on the streets." That's the boss for you, keeping it real no matter how much money is in the bank. 19. David Gilmour.
A distant ship smoke on the horizon.
What if I told you the legendary Pink Floyd guitarist sold his most prized possessions for charity? Yep, David Gilmour sold his entire guitar collection, including the famous Black Strat, to donate $21 million to fight climate change. Unlike other rock stars who hoard luxury, Gilmour believes in giving back. He doesn't own a massive mansion or a fleet of supercars. Instead, he spends his time living a simple, peaceful life far away from the madness of fame. When asked about selling his guitars, he said, "The money's going to a cause more important than me. I've had my time with them." He even avoids luxury travel, often taking regular economy flights and staying in small hotels when touring. Imagine being a music legend and still choosing to fly with regular folks. Now that's staying grounded. David Gilmour once bought a failing church just to turn it into a recording studio. Talk about creative real estate. 18. Mark Knopfler.
Oh, now for me.
Would you believe that the man behind Money for Nothing prefers spending money on old cars instead of new ones? Despite selling over 120 million albums, Knopfler has zero interest in luxury life. Knopfler, the frontman of Dire Straits, is a known introvert who avoids media attention like the plague. Instead of partying in lavish mansions, he spends most of his time writing music in a tiny studio. He even wears the same old leather jacket from the 80s. Talk about commitment. Fans once asked him why he doesn't act like a traditional rock star, and he replied, "I'm just a guy who plays guitar. I never signed up for the rock and roll circus." He's one of the few artists who prove that you don't need excess to be a legend. Mark Knopfler once refused a multi-million-dollar sponsorship deal because he didn't want to sell out his music. 17. Jeff Lynne. Jeff Lynne, the genius behind Electric Light Orchestra, has one of the lowest key lifestyles in rock history. He's worth hundreds of millions, yet he still lives like an ordinary guy. Lynne avoids fancy events and stays out of the spotlight. Instead of flashy cars, he drives a modest old Mercedes, and rather than living in a Hollywood mansion, he chose a quiet house in the suburbs. The most amazing part? Jeff still records music on old analog equipment, refusing to switch to modern digital setups. He once said, "The The soul of music is in the imperfections. Technology is nice, but I don't want to lose that human touch.
I just can't believe they've all faded.
He may be a rock legend, but at heart, he's just a guy who loves music and hates the fame that comes with it. Jeff Lynne still plays guitars from the 70s, refusing to buy new ones because he loves their history. 16. Charlie Watts. What if I told you that one of the most legendary drummers of all time never actually lived like a rock star? Unlike his Rolling Stones bandmates, Charlie Watts never cared for wild parties, expensive cars, or extravagant mansions. In fact, he hated the rock star lifestyle. While Mick Jagger and Keith Richards were out living the high life, Charlie preferred staying home with his wife, sketching in a notebook, or reading jazz history books. Yep, the man was an old soul in a rock star's world. Charlie's signature style? Wearing the same suits for decades, literally. He didn't believe in luxury, and his biggest indulgence was his horses. He once said, "I just love playing music. The rest of it, I can do without." Unlike most rock legends, Charlie never needed the spotlight. He was just there for the rhythm. Charlie Watts once refused a $10 million deal to do a Rolling Stones reality show. He hated fame that much. 15. Ronnie Wood. Ronnie Wood could easily afford all the luxuries in the world, but guess what? He spends most of his time painting. That's right, when he's not shredding on stage with the Rolling Stones, he's at home, covered in paint, working on his latest masterpiece. Ronnie lives a surprisingly quiet life outside of touring. He prefers wearing casual clothes, hanging out with his family, and creating art instead of splurging on expensive things. Despite being a rock legend, he still lives in a relatively normal house far from the typical rock star mansions. Fans were shocked to learn that he even shops at thrift stores sometimes. He once joked, "Why would I spend $500 on jeans when I can get them for $20? That's a mentality you don't see often in the music world. Ronnie Wood's paintings have been sold for thousands of dollars, but he still considers himself just a guy who likes to paint.
Tired of expensive, low-effort script writers for your YouTube channel? Autoscripter.ai is the ultimate solution. Say goodbye to low-quality, poorly retention amateur scripts that fail to generate thousands of views for your channel. At a fraction of the cost, Autoscripter.ai helps your videos go viral. In just 3 steps, Autoscripter.ai creates a polished script tailored to your needs. Just input your title concept, select your tone and style. The intuitive interface makes editing and refining effortless, fast, smart, and trusted by hundreds of satisfied users who have already discovered the amazing tool. Start your free trial today and watch Autoscripter.ai transform your YouTube channel. Just click the link in the video description below now.
14. George Harrison.
It's gonna take money, a whole lot of spending money.
Imagine being one of the most famous musicians in the world and choosing a quiet life over fame. That was George Harrison. The Beatles' lead guitarist didn't just avoid the rock star lifestyle, he actively rejected it. After the Beatles split, he moved into a modest countryside estate and spent his days gardening, meditating, and raising goats. While Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr kept making music for the masses, George was more interested in spirituality and personal growth.
Welcome you to Cracker Box Palace. We've been expecting you.
He once said, "The biggest problem with success is you lose your privacy. That's why I stepped away." And he meant it. He even stopped attending major events just to live a normal life. He may have been a rock legend, but in his heart, he was just a guy who loved peace and quiet. George Harrison once spent an entire year without touching a guitar. He just wanted a break from fame. 13. Tom Petty. You'd think a rock star like Tom Petty would be living in excess, right? Nope. He hated overcharging fans, fought against greedy record labels, and lived a simple, down-to-earth life. Petty was famous for driving used cars instead of luxury sports cars. He lived in a normal house, wore regular t-shirts and jeans, and never got caught up in the industry's materialism. When a record company tried to increase album prices, he fought back, saying, "Music should be for the people, not just the rich." He once gave free concert tickets to fans who couldn't afford them. Who does that? While many rock stars chased money, Tom just cared about the music.
Let's dance with Mary Jane one more time to kill the pain.
Tom Petty once turned down a $100 million Las Vegas residency because he didn't want to sell out. 12. Neil Young.
It's these expressions I never give.
What if I told you Neil Young still lives on a farm, drives old cars, and barely spends his fortune? That's right, the rock legend could afford anything, yet he prefers a quiet countryside life. Neil's biggest passion? Fixing old cars. Instead of wasting money on fancy sports cars, he spends time restoring classic cars and even converting them into electric vehicles. He once said, "I'd rather spend my time fixing an old car than sitting in a boardroom." He's also a huge advocate for environmental causes and lives off the grid as much as possible. No big mansions, no excessive spending, just a simple life filled with music and nature. Neil Young once built a car that ran on biofuel, proving he's as much of an inventor as he is a musician. 11. Ringo Starr.
It's a long way down, and there's no bottom. You had the blue.
Despite being in the biggest band in history, Ringo Starr lives like your friendly neighbor. He wears basic clothes, enjoys painting in his free time, and prefers a quiet life away from Hollywood. Instead of buying a mansion in Beverly Hills, he bought a small home in the countryside where he could enjoy gardening and making art. He's also known for eating at normal diners instead of high-end celebrity restaurants. One of the craziest things? Ringo still drives a second-hand car sometimes. He once said, "I never saw the point in all that flashy stuff. It's just not for me." Even with all his success, he remains one of the most down-to-earth rock stars ever.
Here's to falling on your face, getting back up and win.
Ringo Starr once turned down a $1 million watch sponsorship saying, "I don't need that kind of money to tell time." 10. Angus Young.
Not so much in passing, because that was a kind of end, the relief.
Would you believe that AC/DC's legendary guitarist still wears the same schoolboy outfit he's been rocking for decades? While most rock stars evolve their look, Angus Young sticks to his classic rebellious uniform. And not for the money, but because he just doesn't care about luxury. Despite being worth over $150 million, Angus lives a remarkably simple life. He doesn't own flashy sports cars, and he doesn't have a mansion packed with gold records. Instead, he spends most of his time at his modest home in Sydney, playing guitar like a teenager who just started a band. His biggest extravagance? A good cup of tea. That's right. While many rockers celebrate with champagne, Angus prefers a quiet tea break. He once said, "I just like playing guitar. That's my whole thing. The rest, I can do without." Now that's pure rock and roll. Angus Young's schoolboy outfit idea came from his sister, who thought he should have a fun gimmick. 9. John Paul Jones. Most rock stars love the spotlight, but John Paul Jones? He's been avoiding it for decades. Unlike his Led Zeppelin bandmates, he chose to live a quiet life instead of riding the fame wave. Jones has no interest in extravagant spending. Instead of luxury, he spends his days composing music, gardening, and occasionally jamming with friends. He once turned down a big money offer to do a Led Zeppelin reunion because, in his words, "I'm happy where I am." Even when he was in Zeppelin, Jones stayed away from the party scene. While the band was smashing hotel rooms, he was reading books or calling his family. He's proof that you can be a legend and still live a normal, peaceful life. John Paul Jones once wrote a film score just for fun, refusing payment because he enjoyed the project too much. 8. Billy Strings.
Friend with weed is a damn good friend of mine.
Billy Strings is one of the youngest musicians on this list, but he already lives like an old school legend. Even though he's becoming one of the biggest bluegrass artists in the world, he refuses to spend money on flashy things. Instead of buying expensive guitars, Billy plays beat-up old instruments that he loves. He still eats at cheap diners, drives an average car, and prefers small-town living over Hollywood fame. His philosophy? If I ever start acting like a superstar, someone slap me. He doesn't want to be a celebrity, he just wants to make good music. And honestly, that's exactly why fans love him.
As you live, I'm sorry to tell you, you'll never get there.
Billy Strings was once homeless, playing music on the streets just to survive. 7. Thurston Moore.
I went away to see an old friend of mine.
Sonic Youth's Thurston Moore is the definition of anti-luxury. While most musicians chase fame, Moore still takes public transportation, eats cheap food, and lives in a normal apartment. He doesn't see the point in wasting money. He once said, "I don't need expensive things to feel successful. Success is making music on your own terms." Even though he's a legend in the alternative music world, he still buys vinyl records instead of streaming music and writes in old notebooks instead of using fancy gear. Despite being one of the most influential musicians of his time, he avoids interviews, fame, and anything that screams rock star. He's just here for the music.
Not real, but openly gay.
Thurston Moore still collects cassette tapes, refusing to go digital because he loves the sound quality. 6. Bob Geldof.
And it takes to a waging world. A mother feels so shocked. Father's word is rock. I don't mind if you go. I don't mind if you take it slow. And I don't mind if say yes or no, baby.
Most people know Bob Geldof as the guy who organized Live Aid. But did you know he never lived the luxury life himself? Despite being worth millions, Geldof has always been vocal about money not being important. He doesn't care for expensive suits or fancy cars. Instead, he's more focused on helping people and making real change in the world. He once said, "Money doesn't make you happy, and I've seen enough rich, miserable people to know that." When he's not working on charity projects, Bob lives a quiet life. No flashy parties, no extravagant shopping sprees, just a simple man trying to do good in the world. Bob Geldof once refused a $5 million book deal, saying he didn't need the money. 5. Roger Daltrey. As the lead singer of The Who, you'd think Roger Daltrey would live like royalty. But nope. This rock legend prefers wearing old jeans, driving a 20-year-old car, and living in a farmhouse. Roger still grows his own vegetables, and his idea of a good time is fishing, not partying. He once said, "I've seen too many people lose themselves in fame. I'd rather be normal." Despite selling over 100 million records, Daltrey has never been about excess. His biggest indulgence? A nice cup of tea, just like Angus Young. Roger Daltrey still does his own grocery shopping, often being spotted at local farmers markets. 4. Mick Jagger.
My bag, but it's all.
Yes, even Mick Jagger is frugal. The Rolling Stones frontman is worth $500 million, yet he's one of the most careful spenders in rock history. He negotiates every contract like his life depends on it, and insiders say he refuses to overpay for anything, even when he can afford it. One of his former assistants once revealed, "Mick watches every dollar. He's not cheap, but he's very smart with money." Despite being one of the biggest names in music, Jagger doesn't waste money on unnecessary luxuries. He still books economy flights sometimes just to save a few bucks. That's next level budgeting. Mick Jagger still haggles over tour expenses, making sure he's not wasting money. 3. Dave Grohl.
Out of the red, out of her head, she said, do, 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 do. Tonight.
Dave Grohl might be one of the nicest guys in rock, but he's also one of the most humble. Even after Nirvana and Foo Fighters made him a multi-millionaire, he still drives an old family car and refuses to spend money on status symbols. He once said, "I don't need a yacht, I just need a drum set and a beer." That pretty much sums him up. Dave Grohl once lived in a tiny apartment even when he was already famous, just because he liked it. 2. Eric Clapton.
You said you was hurting, you almost lost your mind.
What if I told you one of the greatest guitarists of all time still does his own laundry? That's right. Eric Clapton, the man behind hits like Layla and Tears in Heaven, has been spotted using public laundromats like an everyday guy. Despite being worth over $450 million, Clapton is not a fan of luxury. He doesn't flaunt expensive watches, he drives regular cars, and he prefers staying at small, cozy hotels instead of 5-star resorts. He once said, "I've lived the high life before, and it's overrated."
Night or day, shadow never seen.
Another surprising thing? Clapton collects old clothes and still wears some from the 70s. While some musicians show off designer brands, he keeps it simple. Just a plain shirt, jeans, and his iconic guitar. He's all about the music and nothing else really matters. Eric Clapton once bought a guitar at a pawn shop for $20 and it became one of his favorites. 1. Paul McCartney.
Well, I can find my way, I know my left from right, because...
And here we are at number 1, the legendary Paul McCartney. You'd think a Beatle worth $1.2 billion would be living in gold-plated mansions, right? Nope. Paul still flies economy class, buys groceries with coupons, and even grows his own vegetables at home. Despite being one of the richest musicians ever, McCartney doesn't believe in wasting money. He once said, "Why spend thousands on a meal when a homemade sandwich does the job?" He even made his daughter attend a regular public university instead of a private one, proving that he values hard work and humility over privilege. And get this, he drives a regular car, cooks his own meals, and even does his own dishes. Paul McCartney might be a billionaire, but at heart, he's still just a guy who loves music and simple living.
We're going to bye-bye. Ever going to bye-bye.
Paul McCartney still rides public transport sometimes, and fans have spotted him on the London Underground. Want more music stories? Check out these videos right here. We've got deep dives into rock legends, shocking music industry secrets, and more. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.